Very good morning, dear students. Under the subject money and banking, today I shall take a very important topic, business fluctuations or business cycles. What are business cycles? Business cycles are fluctuations in business and economic activities characterized by alternating periods of prosperity and depression, of rising incomes and rising prices, and fall in the rate of unemployment, and falling incomes and falling prices, and a high level of unemployment. There are business cycles. So business cycles are recurrent ups and downs in the real GDP of a country. The fluctuations in business and economic activities are measured by rises and falls in real GDP, aggregate demand, aggregate supply, the level of employment, and the level of income in the economy. Business cycles are very relevant today because the emergence of COVID-19 pandemic has really affected all kinds of business and economic activities all over the world, and the world economy will be in deep recession or a depression or a trough in the coming months, and the global economy is likely to lose $10 trillion worth of global output because of this widespread pandemic in 192 countries. Now, let us discuss about the 4 different stages or phases of business cycles. There are 4 well-defined and integrated stages or phases of business cycles. They are expansion phase. Expansion phase is also called revival, upturn, or we can say the recovery phase. So upturn, revival, recovery, and expansion phase mean the same thing. Then comes peak or prosperity or boom. Then contraction or downturn or recession. And finally trough or depression. These are the 4 phases of a standard business cycle. Now, I repeat, there are 4 major phases of a standard business cycle, well-defined and integrated phases. Number 1, the expansion phase, expansion or revival or upturn or recovery phase. Number 2, the peak or the prosperity or the boom. The 3rd, contraction or downturn or recession. And the 4th one, trough. The deep trough is called a depression or a slump. Okay? A standard business cycle is measured from peak to peak or prosperity to prosperity. A normal standard business cycle may last for 4 to 5 years. Some of them are longer and some of them are shorter. I shall just show you the 4 major phases of the business cycle which I mentioned. Okay, this is the business cycle. Okay, this is the long-term growth trend in GDP. Here we show GDP and level of economic activity and passage of time. Okay, if you look at this is the expansion phase, peak at the top, then again contraction or recession or downturn, then trough, again expansion, peak, contraction, trough, expansion, like this. Okay, this is there in the notes. Just for your understanding, I am showing this diagram. Okay, now let us discuss about the 4 major phases of a standard business cycle. Number 1, the expansion phase or the revival or the upturn or the recovery phase. I told you there are 4 names for this: expansion phase, revival phase, or recovery phase, or what is called, the upturn. The economy is moving forward. As the name suggests, during the expansion phase of the business cycle, the economic activities will start picking up. Commercial banks will start giving loans. Business confidence will improve. Workers also will be confident as they are able to get jobs. There will be increase in investment, increase in employment, increase in production, increase in consumption, increase in aggregate demand, increase in real GDP, increase in all kinds of economic activities, increase in imports and exports, expansion of bank credit, and improved marginal efficiency capital, so that businesses are doing reasonably well. Okay, most of the business firms are able to make profits. Their profit margins will rise, prices will start rising, and the economy is really showing some signs of improvement. Okay, now comes the second phase, the peak or the prosperity or the boom. The expansion phase will end up with a very high point, which is called peak or prosperity or boom, during which time the economy is totally prosperous. All economic activities are booming during the prosperity phase of the business cycle. Business confidence will improve, business expansion will be taking place, all kinds of business people, entrepreneurs will invest heavily on capital goods, and there will be increase in investment expenditure, increase in employment, increase in aggregate demand, increase in production, increase in real GDP, increase in profit margins, increase in imports and exports. A multiple expansion of bank credit. Banks are calling people for taking loans. Consumers will take more loans from the bank for buying consumer goods, and entrepreneurs will take more loans for undertaking investment activities, and investment will be reaching at a very high level. Now comes the next phase. Once the economy is booming and prosperous, it won't continue forever. Okay, towards the end of the prosperity phase, when the economy is in prosperous phase, the economy will be operating on its production possibilities frontier, and so that there is absolutely full employment of resources or near full employment of resources. Because prosperity is, according to Professor G.V. Haberler, prosperity is a phase in which, okay, the real income consumed, the real income produced, and the real GDP will rise substantially, and there will be full employment of resources, and there will be no idle resources, and most of the people who are willing to work and able to work can find job during the prosperity phase. But the prosperity phase will not last forever. The next phase of the business cycle, third phase, is called downturn or contraction or recession. Okay, today in 2020, April 2020, the world economy is in total recession. A recession means a decline in real GDP for 2 consecutive quarters. For 6 months or more, if a country's gross domestic product or gross domestic income declines continuously, there will be recession. Okay, ever since January 2020, most of the countries of the world are in decline. Okay, because of the widespread occurrence of the COVID-19 novel coronavirus pandemic, the entire world is in standstill. Nearly half the world population is totally in lockdown. They are unable to move. There is no geographical mobility, no occupational mobility, and all businesses are in standstill. In this kind of a situation, the world output or the world income will decline drastically. Many forecasts are made. According to some estimates, the real GDP of the world will decline by $6 trillion by end of 2020. Some experts say it can decline even by 8 to 9 trillion. I believe that the GDP of the world may decline by more than $10 trillion by end of this year, as most of the world economies are in total recession. Okay, it's total standstill. The oil prices are at the lowest level. Okay, in 20 years. Okay, it is below $16. For the normal thing, the price has fallen so drastically that almost all countries, all members of the OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Countries, in the whole of North America, United States of America and Canada, Australia, the whole of Europe, India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Philippines, all these countries will be in recession or a big decline in economic activities. So what exactly is a recession? During the recessionary phase of the business cycle, the business confidence will start fading. Business investment will not be forthcoming. There will be negative net investment. As the marginal efficiency of capital falls, the entrepreneurs will be less willing to take risk. Okay, as they are really pessimistic about the future, there will be less investment. Less investment means less employment. Less employment means less production. Less production means less income and less real GDP. Less consumption expenditure. Fall in aggregate demand. Falling price level, and the economy will be in standstill. The fourth and the last phase of the standard business cycle is called trough. A trough means a drastic decline in real GDP, a drastic decline in the level of employment, aggregate demand, consumption expenditure, okay, income and everything. Okay, this is the lowest turning point of the business cycle. The recession will turn into, a big downturn. That means a drastic decline in aggregate demand, a drastic decline in consumption expenditure of households, a drastic decline in investment spending by business firms, as many business firms will be closed down during a business depression. Depression time, people are totally pessimistic. Bank will be calling back the loans already given earlier. There will be multiple contraction of bank credit, decrease in money supply, okay, totally pessimistic outlook for the entrepreneurs. Many millions of workers will be unemployed. Today, just look at the situation of unemployment. More than 195 million people in this globe will lose their jobs within a couple of months. Okay, already many millions out of jobs. The unemployment by end of 2019 was around 180 million. Okay, this year by July, another 195 million people more will lose a job. That means 375 million people out of a labor force of 3,500 million will be without job. That means more than 10% of the labor force in this planet will be unemployed by July 2020 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, this is very disastrous. Okay, millions of people will be brought below the poverty line. 553 million more people will be living below the poverty line. There will be shortage of food for around 265 million people globally. Okay, there will be a big famine, there will be a big shortage of any kind. During a depression phase or a trough phase, okay, the investment will be totally negative. There will be total pessimism on the part of the business people. The employment will be very low level. Production, consumption, aggregate demand, everything will be at the rock bottom level, and the economy is totally in a paralyzed stage. Okay, a deep and prolonged trough is called depression. A depression means a decline in real GDP and the level of employment of a country for 1 year or more. Okay, many countries will be entering into the phase of depression by end of 2020 because of the COVID-19 corona pandemic. Okay, dear students, having explained the 4 phases, I have explained to you the depression phase is the most dreadful phase of the business cycle, which means there will be a drastic decline in aggregate demand, drastic decline in investment, consumption expenditure, drastic decline in aggregate demand, drastic decline in employment level, that means very high level of unemployment, and a big fall, a drastic fall in the real GDP of an economy. So that means it will last. Okay, the decline in GDP and level of employment for more than 1 year, as a depression phase. That is the lowest turning point of the business cycle. A big decline in output and income is called a trough, is the downturn of the business cycle, but a prolonged slump is called a depression, or what is called a slump itself in economic activities. Okay. Now, having said the different phases of the business cycle, now let us discuss about the causes of business cycles. Business cycles are caused by 2 sets of factors: internal factors and external factors. Internal factors are those factors which arises from the economic system itself, from within the country. The external factors are those factors which are influences from the outside the country, means external forces operating outside the nation. Now let us discuss about the various internal factors that will cause business fluctuations. Number 1, the first and the foremost factor influencing business fluctuations is the level of investment. Okay, new investment in capital goods like machines and equipments and factories means more employment, more output, more income, and which means definitely the economy will be expanding and there can be business prosperity. Okay, so when we are investing, when the business people are investing more and more money on new capital goods and research and development, automatically there will be technological progress which will reduce the cost of production, which will encourage investment, employment, output, and real GDP in the economy, and aggregate demand also will rise. Okay. Conversely, if the level of investment declines in the economy, automatically there will be less employment, less production or less output, less income, less real GDP, fall in consumption expenditure, and aggregate demand also fall. The economy will be in contraction or downturn phase. Number 2, the second factor influencing of causes of business fluctuations or business cycles are fluctuations in money supply. Okay, if the money supply in the economy increases, automatically rate of interest will fall. Okay, with the fall in rate of interest, automatically more consumers will borrow funds for consumption purposes, and more entrepreneurs will take loans for investment purposes, which will increase consumption expenditure, investment expenditure. Ultimately, aggregate demand will increase, the level of employment will increase, income, output, and real GDP will increase. Conversely, if money supply is decreased in the economy, automatically rate of interest will go up, which will discourage borrowing by consumers and business people, fall in aggregate demand, fall in employment, fall in real GDP, and the economy in recession. Number 3, consumers' expectations about future. If the consumers are expecting a recession in the coming months, like the current situation, everybody is expecting a recession or depression in the coming months in 2020. Maybe this month itself, many countries are in recession, and many more economies will be entering into the phase of recession and depression in the coming months. So they will be very scared about spending their hard-earned money. They will be preserving some money for the future. So their total spending in the economy in the current period will decline, which means there will be less investment, less employment, less output, less income, and fall in real GDP, and the economy will definitely enter into a deeper recession or contraction or downturn. On the other hand, if consumers are expecting a prosperous period in the future, they will start spending lavishly because they feel that their jobs are secure, they will be able to get a guaranteed income, and so there will be more consumption expenditure, and which will encourage entrepreneurs to invest more investment spending, and more aggregate demand, more real output, more real GDP, more employment, and the economy will be prosperous. Point number 4, business expectations. The business investment is the most volatile component of the aggregate demand and real GDP because business investment is based on the expectations about future, optimism and pessimism. If the business people are optimistic about the future, more investment will be forthcoming, which means more investment means more employment, more output, more consumption expenditure, more aggregate demand, more real GDP, and the economy will be expanding its economic activities. However, if businessmen are pessimistic about the future, there will be less investment forthcoming, there will be negative net investment, less market efficiency capital, less employment, less production, less income, less consumption, less aggregate demand, and real GDP will fall, and the economy will be in recession or contraction or downturn. The next factor influencing business fluctuations is expansion and control of contraction of bank credit. Commercial banks are manufacturers of money. I'll teach you later on how commercial banks manufacture money. They are not only merely the purveyors of money, but also in the modern sense they are manufacturers of money. They can manufacture money. They can create multiple amount of money with a basic deposit, primary deposit given by someone. That is called the principle of multiple expansion of bank credit. When commercial banks are able to create more credit, when the central bank is following an expansionary monetary policy, commercial banks will be willing to give more loans at low rate of interest, which will encourage more borrowing by business community and households, more consumption, more investment, more aggregate demand, more employment, more output, more income, and increase in GDP. If there is a multiple contraction of bank credit because of contractionary or deflationary monetary policy by the central bank, automatically the rate of interest will be high. Commercial bank will be willing to give less loans to the business people and the consumers, which will discourage consumption, investment, employment, output, and real GDP in the economy. The next factor influencing business fluctuations is, we can say, the technological progress or technological innovation. Professor Joseph Schumpeter, the Austro-American economist, Professor Joseph Schumpeter says that technological innovation can reduce the cost of production, which will encourage investment activities and can result in business expansion and prosperity. Conversely, if there is a deterioration of technology, automatically there will be high cost of production, which will discourage investment, less production, less employment, less income, and falling GDP, and economic activity will be contracted. The next factor influencing the business fluctuations is marginal efficiency of capital. If the marginal efficiency of capital increases, there will be more investment forthcoming, more employment, more output, more income, and economic progress and economic expansion will take place. If marginal efficiency of capital is declining, there will be negative net investment, less production, less employment, less income, and fall in real GDP. The next factor is psychological causes. Professor Arthur C. Pigou, a Cambridge economist, says that psychological factors can also cause business fluctuations. If people are over-optimistic about the future, too much of investment will be forthcoming, which itself will destroy the economic fabric, and finally the economy will land in a recession or depression. If people are over-pessimistic also, this also will be bad for the economy, and these two, over-optimism and over-pessimism can also cause business fluctuations. The next factor is the political philosophy of the government. If the government of a country is elected newly, when they are immediately elected, they will try to take some harsh measures like contractionary monetary and fiscal policies by increasing taxes, increasing rate of interest, etc., which will discourage borrowing by business community and households, which will cause business recessions and contractions. On the other hand, during the time of elections, they want to do some popular measures to attract voters to vote for them. So they will be following an expansionary policy, expansionary fiscal policy, or expansionary monetary policy, which will result in increased supply of credit in the economy, more investment, more employment, more consumption, more aggregate demand, and increase in real GDP and rise in price level economy under the expansion phase. Then comes the demand and supply shocks. Sometimes some kinds of natural calamities like Hurricane Katrina in 2005 August in America has destroyed lots of production and employment opportunities. Same way, the unprecedented economic crisis or the financial crisis of 2008-2009 led to the recession of the global economy, because many countries were in recession, and really, that kind of a contagion has spread to all over the world, and the investment was not forthcoming as entrepreneurs were not optimistic about the future. There was less consumption, less investment, less production, less employment, less aggregate demand, and fall in real GDP, and the economy was in recession. So these are the internal factors causing business fluctuations or business cycles. Now external factors. External factors are external to the economic system, the outside forces, which includes the fluctuations in oil prices. When OPEC increased oil price by 400%, fourfold increase in oil prices in 1974-75, resulted in stagflation in the world economy. There was inflation with the stagnation of the global economy. Same way in 1979, 80, 82, they have again increased oil prices. Then also there was recession in the global economy. Again, we can say, so the similar way, the present COVID-19 pandemic, the novel coronavirus, which has got a very big impact on the business fluctuations and business cycles. Because of this COVID-19 pandemic, almost half the world is locked down. Millions of people, as I told you earlier, another 195 million more people lose jobs. 553 million more people will be coming under poverty line, and so many people will be having shortage of food. There can be a famine, and the world will be in recession or depression, and world economy will lose $10 trillion. These are the external factors which cause business cycles or business fluctuations.